Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 20th of June, 2018 at 8:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Just wanted to get out here today. Hadn't been out here in a while because, of course, there's been a tremendous amount of rain over the last 3 or 4 days here in the city of Milwaukee, and had about a 50 square foot area in my basement that took on some water that I've been cleaning up and trying to disinfect. Before I get too far gone, let's take care of the normal housekeeping stuff. If you're interested in having a telephone conversation with me at Once Wayward, then you can reach me at area code 414. That number is 982-5604. Again, that number is area code 414-982-5604. Also, this thing is being taped today. You will also be able to find it out on the Once Wayward Brethren Ministries Facebook page or the Once Wayward YouTube page. Again, that's Once Wayward Brethren Ministries Facebook page or the Once Wayward YouTube page. The tapings that are out there are in their entirety and are whatever it is that's being discussed in its entirety, without the possibility of anything being missed because of the fact that there may be connectivity problems, Wi-Fi dropping and what have you. So again, if you're interested in if there's something that should go wrong with the taping tonight, by all means, approximately 45 minutes to an hour after the conclusion of the taping, you'll be able to find it out there on, again, the Once Wayward Brethren Facebook page, Once Wayward Brethren Ministries Facebook page, and the YouTube Once Wayward YouTube page. Over the course of the last 3 or 4 times, we've been discussing the agony of despair is the title of what we've been talking about. And the thing about it is, what I've done is I've taken a few of the a few examples out of the Bible and talked about the despair. And again, for those of you that have not had an opportunity to watch the other ones, this particular discussion was sparked by the death of Kate Spade. I guess she's a famous handbag designer or something. Apparently all of the ladies know who she is. And then, of course, there was Anthony Bourdain, who apparently took his life by suicide. Looking at that, of course, we talked about, we most definitely talked about Judas and the despair that went along with that. We made a brief mention of Peter, and right now what I'd like to do now is I'd also like you to understand that our Savior understood what despair was when he was on Gethsemane and was praying on the night before he was crucified. Not only that, though, but other than as far as everything that's going on, at least in the biblical accounts, he was virtually alone the entire time, from the time that he went through the questioning with the Sanhedrin. He stood alone when he was before Pilate. He was alone when he was scourged. He was alone on the cross. Not only that, though, but there was the total agony of being separated from his Father while he took on the sin of the world. The thing that I wanted to express to you all today is the fact that despair has us to believe that we are totally alone. Now, for those of us that know Christ as our Savior, we understand that the Word says, and I want to say it's Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, that I will never leave you or forsake you. And because of that, when we understand that we're not forsaken, then we know that we're not alone. But the thing is that there are too many in this world now who, even though they could be in a room full of people, have lost their way and don't necessarily know how to communicate with people in order to get them to understand what it is that they happen to be going through. They are alone in their minds and they are captive in their minds, and it's not something that is easily recognizable for those of us that are standing on the outside. The thing about it, and as I've said it over the course of the other tapings, is that we have to start getting back to that place where we go back to talking to each other, where we actually take the time to engage in meaningful dialogue. There's nothing wrong with making new friends. There's nothing wrong with saying hello to somebody. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging a person. And I say that because of the fact that for those of you that have been watching and what have you, and that are actually my Facebook friends and are out there on Messenger, you'll find that one of the things that I do is that if I see you out there, I wave at you just as if we were out on the street somewhere. Matter of fact, I'm in the process now of going through in Messenger with a gentleman that I've really not met, but we are having a discussion now in Messenger, going back and forth. And even though we have great differences of opinion about the topics that we're talking about, we are yet getting to that place where we come to an understanding of each other. And the reason I say coming to an understanding of each other is because when I get to that place where I'm communicating with you, I have you as a mirror for me to look at myself at, and have you and have that place in that relationship if I'm trusting enough what it is that I hear you saying, to be able to look at that reflection that you're giving me and be able to make the necessary adjustments so that I can keep on moving, I can keep moving forward rather than standing still. The problem with despair is that despair gives you that real sense of hopelessness that says that nothing's going right, I'm standing still, the tunnel is dark, and I'll use that, go ahead and work that analogy just a little bit. I've had the great pleasure of driving through West Virginia on Highway 64 or Interstate 64, and there's a couple of places there where the interstate goes through the mountains, and even though there are some lights there, you can't see the other end of the tunnel with all of the sunshine and everything else. You go through these tunnels, and some of these tunnels are up to a half a mile to a mile long. And the thing about it is that when you're going through them, what you see is the artificial light that is there because of the fact that they've actually put some lights in these tunnels. But it's not the absolute light. And see, the thing about it is that this thing about despair is that there's a lot of artificial stuff that goes on as far as people that have despair are concerned. They don't necessarily engage in everything that is naturally good, naturally enhancing, and so they have that problem. The thing is that instead of thinking about coming out, they're always going through. And that's the problem with some of those long tunnels there in West Virginia, because it appears as if you're never going to come out. And so there's that sense of hopelessness that goes with that. But even though we know that Interstate 64 goes all the way through, because after a while you're riding in these tunnels and it just seems like you're never going to come out. The other thing that I think is ironic, as I mentioned these tunnels, is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. I've been through there a couple of times, and I find it to be an absolutely fascinating piece of architecture and structural engineering. But by that same token, it feels, after you've been riding for a while, it feels somewhat oppressive. And see, that's the thing about hopelessness. Hopelessness is oppressive. It makes you feel as if you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. So therefore, you're going through these things, and things are magnified to the point where they become overwhelming. And that is basically what the agony of despair has. Is all about, because the thing is that there is this oppression that happens inside of the mind, and based on our tactile senses, that we get to that place where we just don't seem to be able to move. We don't seem to be able to understand. We don't seem to be able to comprehend. And by that same token, we don't feel like we are understood, and that there's nothing to be gained. And because of that, we have this thing that we've termed the agony of despair. But see, here's the thing. The opposite of despair is hope. And that hope, the hope is what it is that keeps us going. Hope is what it is that makes us take and put one foot in front of the other. We might not necessarily understand where it is that we're going. We don't understand how it is that we're going to get there. But what we do understand is that we are going someplace. The difference between those that have hope and those that have despair is that we always feel as if we're going someplace. We always feel as if there's something worthwhile if we just keep on pushing, if we just keep on going. And see, that is the thing that drives us. Not only does it drive us in our everyday living and in our relationships, but it also drives, in its own way, it drives our career choices, our paths, our interactions with not just with people, with families, with friends. It drives all of that. The thing is that one of the things that happens is that we are always hoping for better interaction. We're always hoping for something that's a little bit better than what it is that we have. And we're not being stagnant. The problem again with despair is that it is the direct result of stagnation. And because of that, because of the fact that I just don't feel like I can make it, I just don't feel like I understand, I just don't feel as if I'm understood, I just don't feel as if I'm loved, I just don't feel as if I'm heard. All of these things lead to despair, because what ends up happening is that those thoughts are what traps us inside of our own heads. So the thing again, I just wanted to bring this out today. The thing that I'm encouraging everybody to do is that in this microwave society where we want everything quick, we want everything fast, I'm saying to you, take the time to build relationships. Take the time to, out of your busy schedules, to embrace somebody, to take them on, even if you don't know them, especially those people that are different from you. And I mean that don't necessarily come from the same background. I'm saying very simply that what's happening in our society today is that it has been fragmented, and more people are losing hope because we're not taking the time to get to know each other. We're not taking the time to embrace each other. We're not taking the time to talk to each other. We're not taking the time to get to know one another. The truth of it is that what needs to happen in this day and age to counteract all of this garbage that we're seeing is it's not that hard for me to go and sit down and to treat you as a human being, regardless of what your ethnicity is, regardless of what your color is, regardless of what your gender is. I ought to get to know you before I start judging you. And the problem that we have today is that we are too busy trying to judge other people. For those of you that are Christian, I'm going to say this as I get ready to close. We need to stop being judges and start acting like witnesses. We are here to witness for Jesus Christ. Some of us, some of us are voluntary witnesses. Some of us have been subpoenaed, and then there are those of us that are actually sitting on the stand right now as hostile witnesses, and we are not doing what it is that we profess in our faith. And our faith says that we ought to be welcoming to each and every person that we encounter. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Who is my neighbor? Whoever it is that I happen to encounter at any given time. May God bless and keep you, and we'll talk to you later.